So what have you been playing? What have you beaten?
Well, yeah. So as most of the listeners know, I've been on kind of this Uncharted kick. Coming off the heels of Uncharted 4, I went straight to The Lost Legacy, just kind of naturally so because
Mm,
that game came out after. I want to say it was like a year or two after, and it's a 2017 game. It's more or less a standalone expansion to Uncharted 4. Some could call it a DLC, even though it wasn't, but it's a good way of thinking about it. But yeah, I beat that very recently. I want to say like maybe 2 weeks ago, maybe three, somewhere around there. I have the date written somewhere. But yeah, another tremendous experience. This game, you're controlling Chloe Fraser, who is one of Nathan's old friends and sort of a former love interest. And you're partnered up with Nadine Ross, who is pretty much the same age, same kind of character. She was one of the villains in four. And you're also partnered up with eventually Samuel Drake, who is Nathan's brother, who is pretty much your main sidekick in Uncharted 4. So, really, pretty much an all star lineup once again. Um, and, it's a 5 to 7 hour game. So, it's kind of like a 10,000 foot overview, as we say in the sort of corporate world. And basically, the plot is you're on this mission to kind of seek out the tusk of Ganesh in the Western Ghats Mountains in India. So the whole game takes place in India. There's a civil war going on. You're in the midst of it, and the main villain in this game is a guy named Asav, who's basically this sort of Indian warlord
mm,
with this kind of army of insurgents with him. So pretty generic story. You're on this mission to get this treasure in India. You've got this, bad dude that wants to get it too. So it's that same classic concept that we've seen time and time and again with Indiana Jones and of course Uncharted. But that's really not where this game shines.
mm.
I would say that where the game shines is basically what was present in four. It's the gameplay, it's the storytelling, and quite frankly, the storytelling in this game was not as profound as four. Really, just because there's less of an attachment to Chloe and Nadine than you had with Nate and Sam and some of the other characters in four. But that was okay because what this game is it's just more of four with different characters that are still really likable, and I think that's the shortest way that you can describe the Lost Legacy.
Hmm.
Um, Kind of moving into our categories, we'll start with gameplay.
Sure.
Same formula as Uncharted 4 here, and pretty much everything else. It's lots of climbing, puzzle solving, melee and gun shootouts, and sort of combat. There's some Jeep driving, which was also present in 4.
Mm-hmm.
Really a lot of fun because, for example, there's real traction with when you're driving the Jeep. I don't know if I mentioned this when I did my 4 review, but if you're running into like mud and rocks on a hill that you have to climb, if the rocks are muddy, the Jeep will actually start skidding and slipping and you can't go up it. So you actually have to maneuver the Jeep in such a way where you go around the mud and eventually climb up the hill. And it even has a winch on it too, which is pretty cool.
Neat.
So it just adds to, I think, the realism of the game. When you have that kind of moment where you're like, man, I really can't get up because it's muddy, but what's interesting is it's not like it's just one muddy side and then the other side is not muddy. It's kind of scattered throughout, but you've got to figure out literally just with your eyes and looking at like at the patches of rock that are not muddy and like maneuver this Jeep the way that you would in real life to get up the hill. So that was pretty cool. And that happens quite a bit. What's also kind of neat is the game's AI, especially with yourself and Nadine. So, for example, if you're driving the Jeep and you're going the wrong way or you feel a little bit lost, Nadine will start kind of chiming in saying, like, come on, like, let's get going. Or, you're really not from around here. She'll make like kind of,
Hmm.
cheeky comments here and there, which is pretty cool.
Right.
And then eventually she'll kind of tell you, like, we need to go this way. So I found that to be kind of a cool implementation with just kind of good quality AI and just keeping you on your toes versus just kind of driving a Jeep with basically like a dummy with you that doesn't say anything. And you're just like, fuck, I don't know where to go. Because those moments happen. They kind of toss you in a Jeep and you're kind of in the middle of nowhere and there's many different sort of forks in the road, if you will. And
Mm,
it's kind of difficult sometimes to figure out where you need to go. And you have to constantly hit the little touchpad to pull up your map. and there's less. I mean, there's no waypoint in these games, but with Uncharted 4, it was a little bit more clear in what you had to do. With Lost Legacy, you really have to pull up your map a lot because you don't have a journal the way that Nathan did, and you really have to just look at the markings that you've made and try and figure out where you need to go. So there was that.
Hmm.
Um,
So just real quick, so
sure.
there's no like there's no indication without the map. Like, is there a compass? Is there like a waypoint or anything to kind of give you a direction to go in?
Not at all. No, a lot of it is just
Hmm.
you have to pay attention. You have to pay attention to where you came from, where you need to go in terms of just visually,
Okay.
and then what the characters are saying. Like there was a couple of times where I kind of just, a lot of what they were saying went through one ear and out the other, and I wasn't paying attention. I was like, shit, I don't remember what they said, and now I don't
Hmm.
know which way they said to go. But they'll say things like, "Oh, we have to head north," but they'll say it within a conversation, and if you miss that, you might have to pull out your map, and then I just had to guess. I had to look at the marks that had a big red X through it, and then I just assumed that we had already been there, and we need to go to a mark that does not have a red X
Hmm.
through it. So a little bit of thinking, God forbid you use your brain, but it is just really because we're so spoiled, right? Like with all these
Yeah.
other games, there's a waypoint, and you've got your little marker,
Yeah.
sort of a la Skyrim or Witcher style at the top of the screen, or you've got a literal like waypoint that's flashing, like "Go here, you fucking jackass!" And there's a lot of games that do
Yeah.
that, so we're really being pulled on a leash.
Yeah.
So it was kind of nice to, literally pull out a map and try and figure out where to go.
Mm.
Um, a lot of conversation while driving the Jeep as well. So, for example, you'll be having a conversation with Nadine. It might not even be about what we're doing, it could
Hmm.
just be something personal. And what's kind of neat is when you jump out of the car in order to like check out an area, like Chloe might say something like, "Hang on 1 second," or "Hold that thought." And you'll get out and you do your thing and you get back in the Jeep thinking, okay, well, that conversation's gone. Nadine will remind you like exactly where you left off in the conversation and it picks right back up again.
Oh,
That was
interesting.
fucking amazing. I
So,
don't think I've ever experienced that before.
and it just comes across as just very casual.
Very casual and natural. It's not just like you get back in and then it just starts exactly where you left off.
Hmm.
It's like, all right, so where were we? And then it picks back up and it kind of changes pace, but it's still the same subject.
Huh.
I thought that was really impressive. And I think that's just another sort of magic touch of Naughty Dog. One of the only studios that I've come across that has that sort of ability to
Yeah.
to implement some of those sort of details. So that was cool.
Hmm.
What else?
Well,
There's a lot of weapons. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, is there shit? I lost my train of thought. Do
Was it to,
they? It was related to the conversations. The
okay?
fuck it, I don't remember.
Hmm.
I don't remember.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. So like, I think I would have probably like once I realized it did that, I would have like paused the game and like just reloaded saves and tried to cut off the conversation at different points. Is that something that you tried at any point?
It's funny you brought that up because I want to say that might have happened. I
Yeah.
think there was a reason that I had to like actually close the game because I think I
Mm,
was updating or trying to load something else. And when I came back, I'm pretty sure that it still had the same effect, which was pretty amazing.
interesting.
Oh, I remember what it was. I totally remember. I'm so glad you brought this up. So when I was actually having difficulty with the wench on the Jeep, the game had like a sound glitch where it sounded like the Jeep was going through mud, but it was just like literally sitting there. So it was like squishy sounds. And I'm like, oh shit, I might have to like restart the game because I can't get the noise to go away.
Hmm.
So I started to drive off and you could still hear like squishy mud. And I was like, all right, the game's like glitching out. I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
restart it. And I did that in the middle of a conversation. And sure enough, when I came back, it picked back up and it was natural. And I was like, holy shit, I
Wow.
have to make a note of this.
That's really cool.
So it was very cool. Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because I totally forgot